Today I'd like to talk again about profits. I was speaking with a friend recently, and she said something to the effect that in hard economic times, she said, profit is the first thing to get cut. And I just couldn't let that go because it's wrong. It's incorrect on many levels. It's incorrect semantically, philosophically, and economically. So I try to explain the meaning of profit to her. How that went, I'm not going to go into, but let me try and explain this to you. A profit is not an expense. You don't cut profit deliberately like you would cut an expense. For example, if you're finding that you're not making enough money or you're losing money, you may turn off some of the services. For example, not pay for broadband internet in your office, but use dial-up instead because it's cheaper, or let somebody go and try to make do with the remaining employees because the payroll and the taxes on that payroll are too much to bear for your business. But profit is not an expense. Profit is the whole point why your business exists. And I'll get into that later. I'll cover that later when I talk about capitalists and the function that capitalists perform in a free society, in a free economy. So profit may get diminished, or if you have a bad business model, your business may fail and you turn a loss instead of a profit. But profit is not something you can deliberately cut. You can deliberately cut your income if you're a shareholder, an owner of or a co-owner of a business. You can, for example, diminish your dividends that you distribute to shareholders because you're having a tough year or a tough quarter. Or you may forego, if you're, for example, a sole owner of a small business, you can forego your personal income for a while, trying to keep your business afloat, hoping that things will turn around. But profit and income are very different things. Let me talk about profit and why profit is great and why profit is very important. I'm probably not going to say anything you don't already know, but still, there are a couple of ideas that I'd like to share. Maybe it'll be valuable for some of you. When you create a business, what you're doing is you're acquiring all the inputs that you need to produce your good or service. You buy inputs like materials and machines and labor and whatnot. So you're buying all those things at the market prices, the prices the market is going to command in a free economy again. And then you offer your product or service to the public. And the fact that you're turning a profit means that, by definition, your revenues exceed your expenditures. But that means that the public that is voluntarily, freely, without any coercion whatsoever, is paying for your service. And why are they paying for your service? Because it's valuable to them. It's valuable to them enough to pay the price that you're asking. So by giving you more in return than you have spent to create that good or service, they acknowledge that you have created something more valuable than the sum of its parts. Again, if your revenues exceed your expenditures, if you're turning a profit, that means that you've created something more valuable from all the inputs that you've consumed in order to create that good or service. That's great. That means you've added value. That means that all those materials and inputs and people and labor and machines and real estate was just sitting there, not producing anything valuable to the marketplace, to the society, to the public at large. But you've taken all these things, put them together in such a way as to create something more valuable than was there before. So when you're turning a profit, you're doing a great service to society. When you're turning a profit, you're doing something valuable to society that was not done before you did it. Again, all those inputs existed before you consumed them. All those things existed before you bought them to create your good or service. Now you've created something more valuable than what you've consumed. Conversely, when you're turning a loss, it means that you're actually misusing, destroying valuable resources instead of adding value to them. For example, there's a great channel here on YouTube called Mrs. Media from the Mises Institute. I highly recommend that you check it out and subscribe. One of the examples in one of the videos that they used was if I decided to create a business, a small restaurant, selling salmon smoothies, okay, I would buy all the fish and I would buy all the blenders and turn the fish into smoothies and try and sell them to the public. Probably would not have too many takers, right? What are people telling me by not buying my smoothie? They're telling me, God, that was a great piece of salmon, man. That you've just destroyed it. You've made it into something completely without value. I would have valued a piece of salmon that you've used to create the smoothie far more than your end product. So I'm not going to buy it. Instead, I'm going to go and buy the salmon, for example, or buy a salmon sandwich from a store next door. So when I'm turning a loss, when my revenues are less than my expenditures, the public is telling me that they don't want what I'm selling. They don't like the way I've used materials, resources, labor, and all the other inputs to create my good or service. That's a very valuable lesson. It's a very simple idea, but it's very valuable if you think about it. If you realize that in a market, all transactions are voluntary, and people buy from you because they value what you have to offer, and conversely, when they don't buy from you, it means what you are offering them is not valuable enough to command the price that you want to charge. If you understand that, I think it can be a great, very simple, but a great guiding idea in how you try to understand the economic phenomena around you. So let me talk about capitalists too, because a lot of people don't understand what capitalists do. They just think that they're the fat guys with mustaches and top hats from the monopoly blocks that just sit on big piles of money and collect money and rob poor labor and exploit everybody. Well, capitalists are people who provide capital, by definition again. And capital is means of production. Capital is not money. You can use money for all sorts of things, but capital is a very specific use of money. You turn money into capital when you invest it into means of production. The reason we have such high standard of living, think back 200 years, even 100 years, 99% of the things that you're accustomed to and probably couldn't live without were not there. 100, 150, 200 years ago. They were not there. From indoor plumbing to cars to commercial air travel to iPods, not there. How are we able to produce all these things today? Well, because the labor has become so much more productive through use of capital. We have machines, we have sophisticated technology, and one person can now turn out so much more in terms of production than 50 years ago or 100 years ago because of capital. So without capital, there is no business. Or rather, the business is there, but it's very unproductive and completely non-competitive because basically manual labor. So capitalists perform two very important functions in society that nobody else is willing to do. One function is a function of waiting. What it means is, in order to create capital, a capitalist, an investor, an entrepreneur has to forego consumption, or rather delay consumption. They have to save money and turn money into capital to create a business. Not anybody, not just anybody, not everybody's willing to do that. And by the way, in doing so, they many times wait for weeks and months and quarters and sometimes years for their business to get off the ground and start turning profit. So they delay their income deliberately, willingly. Imagine if you offered labor, the labor union at General Motors, for example, to forego their salaries for the first, the company just launched, and you asked them, okay, why don't you guys just work for no salary, for no pay, until we start turning profit next year? Nobody will agree to that, right? But capitalists agree to that. They do it willingly. The second function is very important that the capitalists carry in society, is the function of risk-taking. Not every business is going to turn a profit. Not every business is going to end up producing something that the public will want to buy. So who's going to bear the risk of business failure? Well, it's the capitalist. I mean, imagine again offering your employees, your labor, well, guys, if our business fails, you're going to be on the hook for our losses. For example, if our business ends up losing money a year down the road, I'm going to have to take your salary back from you. The labor is not comfortable with that idea, but capitalists do it every day. So those two important functions, the functions of waiting, delayed consumption, and the function of risk-taking, because the capitalist is the one who bears the brunt of the loss if their business goes under. That is something that makes capitalist lives very different from the life of labor. So next time you hear somebody spewing some Marxist nonsense crap about how capitalists rob labor and how profits are dishonest or evil or whatnot, you have to know where they are wrong. You have to know that they fundamentally have no idea, no understanding of how economics work, how people work, what makes people make decisions that they do make. Again, these ideas are probably nothing that you have not thought about or heard before, but if they are, I'm happy to provide something valuable for you to think about. Thanks again, and check back with me later for more stuff. Have a good weekend.